Konnichiwa and welcome to episode 80 of the Leadership Japan series, and I'm your host in Tokyo, Dr. Greg Story, president of Dale Carnegie Training Japan, and much more importantly, you are a student of leadership, highly motivated to be the best in your business field. If you enjoy the program, then you might consider subscribing on iTunes and leaving a review. We would love to hear what you think about the series. How would you like your own access to over 100 years of the accumulated wisdom of Dale Carnegie Training? Get our free report, Stop Wasting Money on Training, How to Get the Best Results from Your Training Budget, plus our free white papers, guidebooks, reports, training videos, blogs, newsletters, course and seminar information, plus much more at japan.dalecarnegie.com. And today we are talking about Mr. Nakatani and the gold-plated room. The snow was heavy as the bus pulled out of the Yamashiro Hot Spring Hotel. 20 minutes later, we were deposited in front of a large store designed to entice tourists to spend up big. Our tour group obediently trotted in toward an area at the back, appointed with fold-away chairs arranged schoolroom style, then patiently waited for the presentation. We were all facing an incredible reproduction of warrior leader Toyotomi Hideyoshi's famous gold tea ceremony room. Every single square millimeter of this room was covered in gold sheeting, including the fire alarm. Mr. Nakatani, a young man in his 30s, opened up the presentation. About 5 minutes into the detail about how they make the gold sheets, how they apply them to make a whole wall, the time involved to complete one section, I started to notice something unusual about Mr. Nakatani. He was speaking in Japanese, but he was doing something remarkable. He sometimes spoke with passion, energy, enthusiasm, and then he would switch and speak in more dulcet tones. He would speak at normal to fast speed, and then he would really slow down some words for effect. I noted he was combining his hand movements, his gestures, with the content of what he was saying to draw out his point more powerfully. These were not the dodgy, manufactured gestures I saw being used by the Japanese athletes in Brazil when they spoke in support of Japan's bid for the Olympics in 2020. No, these gestures were congruent, natural, and credible. I observed he was watching his audience like a hawk, carefully noting their reactions to his presentation. He was also a deft hand at introducing some humor into his talk. He was using his eyes to connect with us as he told us a story about the artisans who made the tiny gold sheets and the skill needed to painstakingly layer them together one by one to make one very large, solid sheet. This was fascinating for me. We teach a course called High Impact Presentations, and I was wondering, is he one of our graduates? Sometimes when we are teaching this course with Japanese in the class, at the start they worry and say things like, well, this professional presentation stuff doesn't fit with Japanese culture, we're too shy. Eye contact has to be with the Adam's apple, or the chin, or the forehead, not with the counterpart's eyes. The Japanese language is monotone, so we can't access the full vocal variety of other Western languages like English. We don't really understand what to do with our hands, so that is why we hide them behind our backs. Yet, here in front of me was a local lad in the middle of nowhere in snow country in Ishikawa Prefecture, knocking this presentation out of the park. I couldn't restrain my curiosity. Once the tour had moved on to explore the rest of the establishment, eager to be separated from their money as they bought up all the various porcelain pieces, knickknacks, and gold-plated delights on offer, I made my way to the front and accosted Mr. Nakatani. Where had he studied his presentation skills? Was he a graduate? Why was he so good? I told him how impressed I was and that I was a trainer of such skills up in the Big Smoke. He answered that he'd never been taught formally, but as a result of giving lots of tour groups this presentation, he'd picked it up all naturally. Wow. So, all those self-justifying excuses about Japanese being culturally unable to present were just that, excuses. In our classes, we explain the difference between chatting with your mates socially and giving a presentation. Look at your friend's Adam's apple as much as you like when conversing over cappuccinos, but when you're on show, you have a different role now. Your job is to be persuasive, to engage with your audience, to use every tool available to grab and hold our attention. Mr. Nakatani used his voice modulation, gestures, storytelling, humor, and eye contact to great effect. He also got regular practice to improve his craft. There is a big hint. In order to grow as a professional, never shy away from opportunities to speak in public. Instead, grab them with resolve. We see big differences in our graduates after receiving training. All that we Japanese excuse stuff is out the window and they get it. If someone out in the snow-burdened boonies can work it out for themselves, then big city types should no longer cover their naked inabilities with their wilting fig leaves of presentation skills denial. As leaders, let's hold ourselves and our teams accountable to be persuasive as communicators. Mr. Nakatani has set the gold standard for us. Some takeaways from today. Eye contact. Engage the audience. Voice modulation to highlight and isolate our key ideas. Gestures. Make the point stronger. Use the power of your gesture. Humor. Usually for the professionals, but if you're able to inject some successful humor, it makes the audience feel a bit more relaxed. Storytelling. We all respond to stories. Don't miss the chance to weave some great stories into the points that you are making. These are some simple hints. If we remember them and if we apply them, then we will be, like Mr. Nakatani, very persuasive. Thank you for joining the Leadership Japan series. If you found the program useful, then you might consider subscribing on iTunes and leaving a review. Remember to access your Dale Carnegie training, free reports, white papers, guidebooks, training videos, blogs, newsletters, course information, plus much more, then go to japan.dalecarnegie.com.